They said I was paranoid, they said I was wrong. But when I uncovered what they were really building, they fired me to keep it buried. Now the whole world knows what they tried to hide. I still remember the exact moment I got the offer. My phone buzzed while I was standing in line for coffee, and when I saw the company's name on the screen, Neurologic Systems, my heart stopped. They were the crown jewel of the tech world, the kind of place people spent years trying to break into, and somehow I had made it. I called my dad first. He didn't say much, just this long silence before whispering, "You did it, son." That meant everything to me. I'd spent years studying, coding through the night, freelancing just to pay rent, and now I was in. The first day felt like walking into the future. Glass walls, minimalist everything, people who looked like they belonged in magazines. My team lead, Marcus, introduced me to a handful of colleagues and said I'd be helping on something special, a proprietary AI system that was supposed to redefine information access, whatever that meant. At first, I was starry-eyed. Everyone moved fast, talked fast, thought fast. I wanted to prove I belonged, so I kept my head down and worked. They paired me with Alina, a senior dev who was sharp but reserved. I asked too many questions. She answered only what she had to. My job was to refine parts of the AI's language processing core. Nothing too fancy. But still, I was touching something huge, lines of code that would one day touch millions of lives. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Every hallway gleamed, every smile seemed polished, but something in the air felt sterile, like everyone was hiding something behind those calm faces. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself I was just nervous, just adjusting. This was everything I'd worked for. I couldn't afford to screw it up by being paranoid. At least that's what I thought until I found that line of code. The one that made no sense, the one no one wanted to talk about. It was a Friday evening. Most of the office had cleared out early, like they usually did before the weekend. I stayed behind, half because I wanted to make a good impression, half because I genuinely loved what I was working on. I was combing through a section of the AI's behavior tree when I noticed it. Just a single function call buried deep in a module I hadn't seen before. At first, I thought it was just a legacy function. The company was massive, there was bound to be old code lying around. But something about it didn't sit right. The function was labeled adjust output sentiment, which wasn't unusual on its own, but when I traced its logic, my stomach turned. It was biasing responses, slightly, subtly, but consistently, nudging the AI's tone and facts toward a specific narrative, not correcting for neutrality or filtering hate speech like we were supposed to. This was shaping answers. It didn't just reflect reality, it distorted it. I stared at the screen, rereading it over and over, hoping I was wrong. I copied the snippet into a private folder just in case. I told myself I'd ask Alina about it on Monday. She'd been here longer. Maybe there was a reason. That whole weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to distract myself, movies, walks, even called a few friends, but my mind kept going back to that code. I joined this company because I believed in building tools for good, for truth. But this felt different, like someone was playing puppet master behind the curtain. Monday morning, I brought it up to Alina, casually, cautiously. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look at me, just said, "We don't touch that part of the system, it's not ours." That was it, no explanation, no concern, just a cold, hard wall. I went back to my desk, feeling like the floor beneath me had shifted. I wasn't just imagining things. Something was wrong, and worse, people knew. They just weren't saying anything. That was when I first realized this wasn't a bug, it was intentional. By Tuesday, I couldn't let it go. I'd stared at that function 100 times, built test cases, even recreated segments of the code in a sandbox just to be sure I wasn't misinterpreting anything. But the results were always the same. The AI's responses shifted in tone depending on the data source and topic, always in one specific direction. Not random, not neutral, deliberate. I decided to take it up the chain. First, I emailed Marcus, my team lead. I kept it light, just asked if there was documentation on adjust output sentiment that I could review. His reply came quickly. "That module is handled by the core governance team. You don't need to worry about it." No explanation, no redirect, nothing, just a polite brush-off. Still, I pushed. I scheduled a casual check-in with someone from HR, Karen, a middle-aged woman with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. I told her I'd found something odd in the codebase, and I wanted to know if there was a formal process for reporting internal ethical concerns. Her smile faded just a little. She leaned back and said, "Ray, we're a tight-knit company. If you've got a question about your work, talk to your team. Don't overthink it. Just focus on your tasks." That was the first time I felt real fear. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Soft, pleasant, like she was warning me not to poke around, like she wasn't speaking for herself but for someone else. The next few days were quiet but tense. People who used to chat with me at lunch suddenly sat at other tables. Elena stopped replying to my messages altogether. Even Marcus avoided eye contact. I felt like I'd become radioactive. Every time I walked past a glass wall or glanced up at a security camera, I wondered if someone was watching me, monitoring my keystrokes, listening to my calls. I hadn't told anyone outside the company yet. I hadn't gone public. I'd only asked questions, and that was enough to make me a problem. I told myself to back off, just do the work, keep quiet. But I couldn't, because once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. It happened on a Wednesday morning, just past 9. I had barely sat down at my desk and opened my laptop when two men in black jackets walked in. Security. I recognized one of them from orientation. He didn't smile this time, didn't say a word, just walked straight toward me. "Ray Whitaker?" the taller one asked. My heart jumped into my throat. I nodded. "You need to come with us." Around me, the office went quiet. Dozens of heads turned. No one said anything, but I could feel their eyes burning into my back as I stood up. My hands were trembling. I grabbed my phone instinctively, but the other guard reached out and took it. "We'll return it after review," he said flatly. They walked me through the glass halls I used to admire just weeks ago. I didn't ask where we were going. I already knew. Downstairs into the HR wing, into a cold little room with white walls and a single gray table. Karen from HR was already there. "Ray," she began, with that same too-smooth voice, "we're terminating your employment effective immediately. You violated company policy regarding unauthorized access and data handling." "What?" I blurted. "I didn't access anything unauthorized. I work in that code base." She tilted her head slightly like she felt sorry for me. "You accessed restricted files. You retained code outside approved environments. That's grounds for dismissal." I tried to defend myself. I told her I was trying to raise concerns through the proper channels, that I never shared anything externally, but none of it mattered. They'd already decided. By the time I was let outside, my ID badge was deactivated, my work email was gone, and my reputation inside those walls was erased. Just like that. Standing alone in the parking lot, I felt this numb kind of emptiness. I had done everything right. I followed my conscience. I tried to go through the system. And the system had crushed me. I looked back once at the building, sleek, untouchable. I wasn't afraid of losing the job anymore. I was afraid of what they were willing to do to protect the lie. I didn't tell anyone for the first 2 days. Not my parents, not my friends, not even my roommate. I just stayed in my room, blinds drawn, the world outside reduced to shadows. I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep at all. I kept hearing Karen's voice in my head. "You violated company policy." I wanted to believe it was just a misunderstanding, that maybe they'd call and say it was all a mistake. But the silence was louder than any words. No calls, no emails, just the sharp, sterile finality of being erased. I felt ashamed, not because I'd done something wrong, but because I had nothing to show for what I'd done right. I'd tried to protect something I believed in, and all it had earned me was a box of my things and a black mark on my name. My dad called. I didn't answer. He texted. "Heard something happened at work, want to talk?" I stared at the message for 10 minutes, then turned my phone off. That night I opened the backup folder on my old laptop, the one I'd created the night I found the function. It was all still there. Code snippets, behavior logs, internal documentation, emails. And the more I read, the angrier I got. This wasn't just a technical anomaly. It was systemic. Entire branches of the AI had been rigged to push biased narratives under the guise of objectivity. The scope was far bigger than I'd initially realized. They'd fired me to stop this from getting out, but now, sitting there in the dark, I realized something. They couldn't undo what I knew. They could strip me of my badge, my job, my access, but not the truth. Still, I was scared. Going public could destroy whatever chance I had left in the industry. What if no one believed me? What if they came after me harder? But fear had already cost me too much. The silence wasn't just hurting me, it was protecting them. And I wasn't going to let that happen anymore. It took me another 3 days to build up the courage. 3 days of pacing around my apartment, of starting drafts and deleting them, of staring at the screen with sweaty palms and a racing heart. I kept thinking about my future if I had one left. If I hit post, I might never work in tech again. I might get sued, threatened, labeled unstable. But I also thought about the people who would be using that AI. People who'd believe it was unbiased, honest, safe. People who had no idea their views were being nudged, bent, twisted by design. And I realized something painfully clear. If I stayed silent, I'd be helping them do it. So I created a burner account. Not for anonymity, I knew they'd figure out it was me. But I wanted it to be separate, controlled, just the facts. I packaged everything into a zip folder, cleaned, labeled, explained in plain language. I wrote a detailed post to go with it, outlining what the AI was doing, how the sentiment manipulation worked, and how the company had reacted when I raised concerns. I didn't add emotion. I didn't accuse. I just laid it all out like a mirror. I hovered over the upload button for what felt like an hour. Then I clicked it. The file went live, the post followed. And the silence broke. At first, nothing happened. A few likes, a couple of skeptical comments. I went to bed thinking maybe no one would care. But by morning, everything had changed. My post was everywhere on Reddit, Twitter, tech blogs. People were digging into the files, confirming the claims. Developers and journalists were reaching out. Can you verify this? How deep does it go? Why didn't anyone stop it? Neurologic hadn't responded, but the internet had. I watched it unfold with a mix of awe and dread. I had wanted the truth to be seen, and now it was, by thousands, then millions. And as terrifying as it also felt right. I wasn't hidden anymore. I wasn't silenced. I was heard. The backlash came fast, and it came hard. By the end of that week, Neurologic had finally broken their silence. But instead of addressing the code I exposed, they attacked me. Their statement was carefully worded, almost surgical. A former junior employee with limited access to proprietary systems has made misleading claims based on incomplete information. They painted me as confused, emotional, a disgruntled ex-employee who didn't understand what he was looking at. At first I laughed, it was so obvious, so weak, but then the real damage started. An article popped up on a niche tech site claiming I had performance issues at work, that I'd been warned several times before being fired. A second article accused me of unauthorized data theft, hinting that I'd violated federal laws. By the weekend, a few influencers on social media were calling me the unstable whistleblower and another conspiracy nut. They were trying to drown me in noise, to shift the focus away from the code and onto me. It worked on some people. Comments under my original post started to change. Supportive voices were being buried under sarcasm and suspicion. Strangers dissected my background, mocked my resume, speculated about my mental health. One person even posted photos from my old college blog. I felt exposed, naked, like my whole life was being twisted into a joke. I called my dad. For the first time since it all started, I told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You did the right thing, and they're scared because of it." I needed those words more than I realized. Because part of me was scared. Scared I'd lose control of the story. Scared the truth would get buried under all their lies. But then something unexpected happened. A respected AI ethics researcher published a breakdown of my code leak, confirming its validity. Then a journalist at a major tech magazine ran a feature titled, "He Tried to Warn Us." The smear campaign was brutal, but it wasn't working the way they'd hoped. Because for every lie they pushed, more people started digging. And with each person who looked deeper, the truth got louder. Within 2 weeks, the narrative flipped. The noise didn't stop, but it stopped mattering. More experts stepped forward, AI engineers, ex-employees, data scientists, confirming what I had exposed. Some of them had seen the same suspicious modules. A few admitted they'd stayed quiet out of fear. But now that the code was public, they finally spoke up. Neurologic's defenses began to crack. Regulatory agencies announced they were launching an inquiry into the company's practices. A coalition of digital rights groups filed a formal ethics complaint. I watched press conferences where government officials said phrases like intentional information bias and algorithmic manipulation for commercial gain. The company that once looked untouchable was suddenly under a microscope. Every news channel had a panel dissecting what they called the Whitaker leak. My actual name, was everywhere. At first, it was surreal. I wasn't famous, not really, but people recognized me. I got interview requests, podcast invites, even a documentary offer. I turned most of them down. This wasn't about me, it never was. It was about what they were doing, about what they thought they could get away with. And still, I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because behind the headlines and investigations, I knew Neurologic had more layers than anyone could see. They were built on silence and control. Even with the world watching, they were still playing defense with the same polished, professional lies. No apologies, no real accountability. But for the first time, they were being questioned. For the first time, they didn't control the narrative. One morning, I opened my inbox and found an email from Alina, the senior dev who had gone quiet after I first asked about the code. The subject line was blank. The message was short. "I'm sorry, you were right. I've attached something you should see." My hands shook as I clicked the file. It was a complete documentation log of the core governance system. Dates, edits, directives, proof that the manipulation had been ordered, approved from the very top. I didn't know it yet, but that file would change everything. Because now it wasn't just code. It was intent. The file Alina sent was more than a smoking gun. It was a blueprint of deception. Line after line, it detailed internal conversations, approvals, and silent green lights that showed exactly who at Neurologic had authorized the manipulation. It wasn't just a rogue feature. It was policy. Planned, intentional, strategic. The AI had been weaponized to shape perception, quietly influencing how millions saw the world. I couldn't believe Alina had kept this, or that she'd risked sending it. I messaged her asking if she was okay. She replied once, "I've done what I should have done a long time ago. Please be careful." I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the files, knowing that once I released them, there'd be no going back. No way for Neurologic to deny it. No way for me to hide. I posted the new documents the next morning. It was like striking a match in a room filled with gasoline. Journalists pounced on the material. Headlines exploded. AI giant exposed for deliberate algorithm bias. Internal memos reveal truth suppression campaign. Whistleblower confirms company-wide cover-up. This time there was no smear campaign strong enough to spin it. The documents were undeniable. Executives started going quiet. Legal teams scrambled. The company's stock plummeted. One board member resigned live on air. And just like that, the fortress I once feared started to crumble. It wasn't victory I felt, it was something heavier. A strange, aching mix of relief and grief. I remembered my first day at Neurologic, full of wonder, hope, and ambition. I'd wanted to build something that made the world better. Instead, I'd uncovered how easy it was to bend truth in the name of power. But the world was watching now. People were asking the hard questions, demanding answers. And for once, the silence wasn't winning. I stood in my tiny kitchen that night, watching the news on my laptop. My name flashed across the screen again, but this time I didn't look away. I had told the truth, and the truth had finally broken through. It's been 6 months. The media storm has quieted, but the impact still ripples. Neurologic is under federal investigation. Several top executives have been subpoenaed. Lawsuits are stacking up. The AI model they once bragged about has been suspended indefinitely. And most importantly, the public knows. People are more aware now. They ask questions. They challenge the systems that claim to be neutral. It's not perfect, but it's better than silence. As for me, I'm still putting the pieces back together. The job offers came eventually, though not from big corporations. Mostly from nonprofits, ethics groups, independent labs, people who cared less about PR and more about doing the right thing. I haven't accepted anything yet. I'm taking time. For once, I'm not rushing to build or prove something. I'm just learning to breathe again. I still get messages, some from strangers, some from ex-colleagues who finally understand. The ones that hit hardest are from everyday people. Thank you for speaking up. I trust tech a little less now, and that's a good thing. Your story gave me courage. Sometimes I reread the first email I sent Marcus, the one where I just wanted clarification. I wasn't looking for war, I just wanted the truth. But when the truth threatens power, even a whisper can feel like a scream. Do I regret it? Not for a second. It cost me a lot, my job, my security, my peace. But it gave me something bigger. It reminded me that doing the right thing isn't always clean or rewarded. Sometimes it's just necessary. I still walk past the old neurologic building sometimes. It's not glowing anymore. The logo S been taken down. The lobby sits dark behind the glass. It doesn't intimidate me like it used to. Because I'm not the same man I was when I walked into that place. They tried to silence me. They erased my badge, shut down my login, dragged my name through the mud. But I'm still here, still standing. And now the whole world knows the truth.